And this is who you're subscribed to. Who you're subscribed to. Little segment I decided to do just to let you know who you subscribe to, who you following, who you liking, who you checking out. Get to know the person. I feel that that's important these days at times. I've been gone for a while, but for those who do know, and for those who don't know, I was getting married, and I just finished working out at gym, so don't get it twisted. I got my ring right here. Yeah. Yeah, and I just got back from my honeymoon and all that good stuff. But let's talk relationships today. Let's talk relationships since I'm just coming back from honeymoon and getting married and all that good stuff. Let's talk relationships. Um, right now, around me, there are a lot of people getting married, um, friends, but I also know a lot of people that are going through divorce. I've been through divorce. Um, it's not an easy thing. If you're coming from it from a religious or spiritual standpoint, it's really hard because you kind of raised that you don't get divorced, and you deal with it, you stick with the person, you stick it out, and this and that, and that's easier said than done. Um, a lot of times people, if they have a reason why they get married, then it tends to be kind of easier to have that foundation and honor that foundation. And then still things can go wrong because people are people and human beings are human beings. But it's it's not as it was, I would say, 80 or 70 to 100 years ago, where you just got married and you just stayed. It's like there's so many things and factors. And when I was in a marriage counseling group class or whatever, you know, the main thing that the coaches were discussing with us was just like the danger of social media and how social media has played an effect in the last like 20 years of just so many divorces. And I, I can see that. I get it and understand it. But the fact of, you know, men cheating and women cheating and affairs and stuff like that, it was going on way before social media. So, uh, to blame the outlet of social media is almost like blaming a bar for, being there for a person going to drink. It's like either way, you got to go to these things for them to have an effect. So, but to be a little bit vulnerable when it comes to relationships and divorce, and I'll talk about marriage as well, is that I honestly felt like a failure. Um, and I can honestly say I did fail because, somewhere along the lines, of us growing, we grew apart, we grew differently, we wanted different things, we had different ideas, and it wasn't gonna work, and it's like, and that's not to say that we didn't try to make it work. It's not to say, I am discussing relationships, Jinx. I am discussing relationships. Thank you for tuning in, um, or Remy, or whoever it is. But yeah, I'm discussing relationships, ups and downs of relationships, marriage, divorce, things of that nature. Um, but somewhere along our struggle, we went different ways, and we tried to work it out. We tried, doing this, we tried doing that, we tried doing, and the thing that comes up these days is that when something is done, it's done. And I mean, I respect our grandparents and our parents and great grandparents for, sticking it out. But, I think when you have things that are coming against you from the outside that kind of force you to have to get back to back and fight the world together, it's a whole different thing. And struggle, believe it or not, brings about a lot of greatness when it comes to couples and relationships. So I think that we're living in a time where, if you're with somebody and you got your own, they got their own, it's like, well, I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't want you, I don't want you either. And you can go your separate ways. You both got your individual cars. You both can, afford to, live this way or live that way. And so it's so many things that exist now that can push people apart instead of bring people together. And so I can admit that I failed in my last marriage, and it's like, so, and not to say that anything was done wrong per se. It's just that it didn't I didn't say I do then to say I don't. I said I do then, and with the idea that it was going to be for the rest of my life. But that's just not the way it went. And, we were two different people. We grew into two different people, and factors played, abuse factors came in, and you never know. When you meet something, and just remember this: when you're in a relationship with somebody, if you meet somebody young, every 5 to 10 years, that person's gonna grow and change, and hopefully, you're both evolving to be greater people for each other and for whatever you're trying to build, whether it's a family or whether it's just a relationship or bond. But hopefully you grow, if not, equally, you grow in emotion where you guys can still connect, because it's hard when one person is striving for this and another person is like down here miserable or doesn't want to do that or don't want to believe in that or don't want to, it's very, very hard. And it ends up causing so much chaos. And I believe that in your home is that's the place you should have the most peace. That's the place you should have the most pieces in your home. And I mean, unless you're a couple that are, in the sports, athletics together or something like that, or you doing, having some fun together, it's like your life shouldn't be a competition with your mate. Your life just shouldn't be a competition with your mate. And that's not fun. And when you're in your house, you need support. When you're in your home, you need support. When you're trying to do things, you need support. And male and female, men, you should support your significant other. Women, you should support your significant other. And it's like, it's hard enough every day to gear up, get up, and go to lackluster ass jobs where you're getting mistreated, or even working for yourself, putting in a lot of that hard work, time, effort, hustle. And, it's like, life is hard enough, man. So I'd be damned if you come home and you can't have some sense of peace, some sense of relaxation, so you can recharge and go back at it tomorrow. So with divorce, it takes such a toll on a person, because if you marry a person and you've been with a person for a long time, your souls start to intertwine. You start to become one, whether you want to or not. You start to become one. Even if it's volatile, you still becoming one in whatever realm y'all living in. It's volatile, if it's peaceful, if it's this, if it's that, whatever realm y'all living in, that's the bond y'all usually become. It usually becomes one. And when it starts breaking down, and a lot of people don't like to believe it, but men get torn down on the inside just as much, as women, when it comes to that, something like it's separating, it's breaking, it's just like, and, a lot of times it's always one person that wants to still try to work it and make it work. And if it's not there, it's just not there. And sometimes you just have to own up and take accountability to that. Hey, well, I did this or I did that, or I didn't do this or I didn't do that, or I could have been more, I could have been less, I should have did this, and you taking accountability is the first step to healing, if you ask me. When you try to walk around and act like, even if you were the one who got abused, even if you were the one that got mistreated, even if you were the one who got cheated on, even if you were the one who fell out of love or whatever, if you try to walk around and act like that doesn't exist, it's going to come back up years later. And usually after you go through a long-term relationship breakup, it usually takes 2 years to get over that. It usually takes 2 years to heal. You go through so many processes. You go through, your mental process, your spiritual process, physical process, the soul process, the financial, economic, all that. You go through all of that process, and you got to heal from it. You got to heal from it. And then you go through the things of, if you are trying to date within those 2 years, if any little blink of anything that reminds you of that old person, you ready to, either run or push that person away. Get away from me. Get away from me. I don't want to, and you go through a fear of something like this happening again. Because if you put a lot of years into a relationship, you gotta remember that's your life. That's your life. I got married 27 and got divorced at like 40. That was all my 30s. It's like I'm not getting those back no time soon. It's like, and I'm not saying that to say that, it wasn't good times in the midst of those, those beginnings and those humble beginnings and those struggles. But the end just got different. And I mean, we fought as much as we could to try until the fight became too directed at each other, and it became unhealthy, if you can understand what I'm saying. And when it becomes unhealthy, meaning nothing physical, but just, becomes unhealthy, when you come in the door, it's like you on arguing mode, and it's like it's just too much. I'm not that, anybody who knows me know I'm not confrontational. I try to, that ain't my thing. So if it comes to that, then it's time for me to move around. But the marriage aspect of the whole thing, marriage is work, and from that experience, I appreciate the experience I have now. I value what I have now. I see the greatness and the goodness in what I have now. And I also grew up, when it comes to certain things, and having not had something that I should have had within something that I had, and now having that, it's almost like you're grateful. It's almost like if you if you grew up in the South and you had an outhouse, where you had to go use the bathroom, and then you have a bathroom inside your house. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. That's how I feel now. I got something within the relationship that I had that I never had, and it's like it's like, wow, okay. So it's like I'm gonna take care of that, just like I tried to take care of the the past things, but I'm gonna cherish this and be grateful that I've been blessed with what I have, and not take it for granted, and pay attention to maybe some of the mistakes I made before, like overworking or things of that nature, or and I'm very attentive to whoever's in my life, and I really take care of people who's ever in my life, and so if that's reciprocated, then that's a blessing as well. And so you when you find someone that you want to marry, everyone says that you need to talk about this and talk about that, and you do, but you have to realize too that your interconnection that you have, your soul connection that you have, is what's going to carry you through a lot more than your conversation about your 10-year plan or your 5-year plan. Because your 5 and 10-year plan, 20-year plan, your 30-year plan, your retirement plan can all go kaput if you get hit with a bout of cancer, or somebody gets hurt in an accident, or some other illness or something arises, or somebody loses a parent or a child or a sibling. You never know what direction that person can go. And those are the things where you need a partner, where you need somebody there. You need a shoulder. You need a best friend. Those are things like when COVID hit us, it's like, people had millions and millions and billions of dollars, and it was like, but damn, you can still get this sickness, or you can still die just like that. You know, there were celebrities who had to lock their significant others in rooms and feed them through the door slots and stuff like that. It's like, so it's I'm not saying the other things aren't important, but you have to value what's truly important. And the care and the love for that person and what you want to live to have, you can always get that. Our economy could flip upside down tomorrow, and we could all be back to, struggling and buying, Lysol by the dozens and, shit like that. So it's like, who never know? We don't know what the world may flip flop into, but what you have and that foundation you're trying to establish with that person, that's what's going to keep. And a lot of people found that when they had to be in the house with the person, they didn't have that foundation no more. They may have had it when they started it, but they didn't have it no more. You know why? Because they were chasing things. They were so busy putting everything before themselves and each other. And then they found out that now that these things are gone, oh, you're here? Oh, I'm here with you? Oh, wait a minute. You do that? Oh, I don't like you. I didn't know you did that. You do that? Oh, wait. Oh, you got gray hair. Oh, wow. Your eyebrows grew back. Oh, it's like, it's just a whole bunch of, shit that people were dealing with that they hadn't dealt with because they had been so busy being away from their foundation. So I personally would say, have a foundation when it comes to your relationship and when it comes to your significant other and your love. If you make it about everything outside of you, that could be the very thing that destroys you. So, or what tears you apart. If you put everything before each other and before your foundation and before God, no matter how you believe, what you may call your God, if you put everything before that, then that may be the very thing that tears you down and tears you apart. So just remember that. Relationships aren't easy when it comes to, finding balance sometimes. I struggled with that a lot because here was, you got all this responsibility, you got to take care of everything, you got to, and being the only one that was working at that time, it was like, how could I not work? It's like, it's not going, we're not going to have it. If I don't go get it, we're not going to have it. But, I had to learn too that, sometimes when you're out fishing, every spot in the water ain't the best spot to go. Every part of the ocean ain't the safest. So I could have cut back a little bit. I could have did this, could have did that. But those are the learning experiences that I have that make me better for the relationship I have now. And those are some of the mistakes that I learned from, that make me more mature, available, smart when it comes to not just relationships, but business as well. So really understand that I had a thought. Yeah, just understand that like when it comes to relationships, it takes work, and that you really need to have the foundation of your own personal goals of what you guys want for each other in your relationship. If it's gonna be built on, just finances and all that stuff, then hey, just know that may be the very thing, that when it falls apart. But you don't find many people saying they're getting divorced because they love a person too much, or you don't find many people saying they're getting divorced because they cared about a person too much, or they just took too good care of me, or they just love me so much. But you always hear people getting divorced over finances, irreconcilable differences, affairs, all other things. So just be mindful. That's who you subscribe to. Peace. Fight for your life.